Hey guys, how's everyone doing? Time for another math lesson. Now before I do the math lesson today, we're going to drop a little math joke on you, and if this works out it could become a regular feature. So here's the math joke for today. Hold up, Spencer. What did the triangle say to the circle? The triangle said to the circle, "You're pointless." Is that good? Alright, so if you have a good math joke, why don't you just post it here in the likes in the like section after the video, and maybe your joke will get talked about on another math video. Alright, so we're going to do a lesson today on something called volume. And just to represent volume, Spencer, can you pass me that macaroni and cheese box? Perfect. Put it right here. Emmy, can you pass me this box? Okay, so first two things we talked about with rectangles is the perimeter. Perimeter is the distance around the outside of the box, and it's one-dimensional, just one length. These are both rectangles. The area was the amount of space covering one side of the box, so like the front of the box, the whole area. And that's two dimensions. It's the length times the width. Today we're going to talk about volume, which is the amount of space inside the box. So the amount of stuff that could fit inside a rectangular box. Okay? You guys ready? All right, let's go. Okay guys, today's lesson is on volume of rectangular prisms. So first of all, the definition of volume, the amount of space in a three-dimensional object. So maybe a little bit of a simpler one would be the amount of space in a box or in any three-dimensional object. We're just going to be talking about rectangular boxes or square boxes. So like a cereal box or a granola bar box or any type of cardboard box really. So volume, if you remember when we did perimeter, it was just kind of a one-dimensional line that you measure around the outside. Area was a two-dimensional because we're talking about all this space on the front of a rectangular surface. But volume is three-dimensional because we're trying to figure out how much space is inside the box. So we have to figure out the length, the width, and the height. So this, how you write the answer to questions is talked about in cubic units. Cubic basically means three dimensions. So that little 3 stands for three dimensions, which is also a cubic unit. So it's either like in centimeters cubed, meters cubed, or kilometers cubed. Okay, so we're going to do an example. So here we have a rectangular box, and I tried to make it look three-dimensional, so it's an actual box. So we're trying to figure out how much stuff is inside. So the nice thing about this, about the volume, is the definition or the formula is really simple. So the volume of a rectangular prism is the length times the width times the height. So really simple. Those are your three dimensions. So that's your formula. Okay, so if you look at this box, typically I would say like you could talk about this being the length. So we'll just say the length is 3, the width, we'll say this is the width, here is 4, and the height of the box would be 8. Now, really the nice thing is it doesn't really matter which is the length and the width and the height because you're just going to times them all together. So if we plug this into our formula, let's do it here. So we have 3 times 4 times 8. And if you do 3 times 4, that's going to be 12. So we'll do 12. And then you still have your times 8. So 12 times 8, well I know 10 times 8 is 80. 2 more 8s would be 96. So 96, and then it's in centimeters, so it's important to remember the units. And then you have to remember for volume it's three dimensions, so it's cubed. And what that basically means, even though you don't really need to understand this, is if you had really small little cubes, and they're all centimeters around, like a 3-dimension little centimeter cubes, 96 of those would fit inside this box if you piled them all on top of each other. Not that it's that important, but that's kind of the concept. If you had little cubes that were all 1 centimeter all around, and a cube is kind of like a square, 96 of them would be fitting inside that box. Okay, a couple more examples. So again, simple formula, volume equals length times width times height. So for this rectangular prism here, you're given 3 dimensions. And again, it doesn't really matter which you take as the length and the width and the height, as long as you times them all together properly. So volume equals 6 times 2 times 2. So 6 times 2 times 2. 6 times 2 is 12, times 2 more is 24 centimeters. And then important to remember that cube, because if you would incorrectly do that, then you would not be talking about volume, you might be talking about perimeter or area if you just leave out the cube. Okay, so this one here, I just went and made a little bit of a different one. If you're given, for example, 5 centimeters, and let's just say all of these were the same in length, so let's say this was a square box. Now, same idea, and one way to think of a cube as well is like an ice cube. Ice cubes are usually, not always, well, they're kind of like square cubes, so that's why we call it a cube, because it's a three-dimensional shape. So anyways, this box volume, you can still do, if you're just given a cube and you know all the sides are equal, well, that means 5 times 5 times 5 would be your length, width, and height, because they're all the same. So 5 times 5 times 5. And if you do that, 5 times 5 is 25 times 5, and then 25 times 5 is 125 centimeters cubed. So if you ever do get big numbers like that and you're not sure, you can always check on your calculator what the answer is. So it should be simple. 3-dimensional length times width times height for volume of a rectangular prism or a square cube.